Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Fritz,
I'm Damon Lewis.
and you're listening or watching the Surf the Astral Show, a spiritual show about meditation and lucid dreaming and astral projection. So thanks for tuning in again. We've got two very special guests with us today. We've got Michael Tamura and Raphaelle Tamura. So we'll start with Raphaelle Tamura. For 39 years, Raphaelle Tamura, a renowned clairvoyant, spiritual healer, and teacher, has been helping clients throughout the world. Along with her ongoing private practice with individual clients, she has been teaching spirituality and metaphysically oriented classes through teleseminars, retreat, and weekend seminars with her husband, Michael Tamura, a well-known and beloved spiritual teacher and author of You Are the Answer. Raphaelle is also the co-founder and COO of Seraphim, hope I said that right, at Mount Shasta, which she runs with her husband. She's an inspiring author of the book she hopes to publish with the working title, The Golden Collar, which I'd love to hear more about. True story about how her own dog, Shanti, returned to three times this current lifetime. It's pretty cool. Raphaelle and her husband, a longtime business partner, have international internet radio show Living the Miracle with Michael and Raphaelle Tamura on the empowerment channel of voiceamerica.com. So welcome, Raphaelle.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And then Michael Tamura lives the miracle, spiritually aware from childhood. He sees you the way you are, as immortal souls. To guide thousands to their healing, awakening, and true purpose, he draws from years of intensive training, past life recall, nightly out-of-body sojourns, 48 years of teaching and giving clairvoyant counseling, and a lifetime of extraordinary experiences, including returning from death 5 times. The award-winning author of You Are the Answer teaches psychic tools and spiritual practice to awaken souls. Michael and his wife, Raphaelle, also host their own weekly radio show, which we've talked about, Living the Miracle. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you very much. Great to be here, ready to surf.
Hey.
Awesome. Happy to have you. So I want to kick off with the first question. If you don't mind, I want to read just a few sentences from your book, which will lead into the first question. So when a soul completes building this holy temple, that being will be able to travel between universes, go between the highest heavens and the lowest hells, and sit with the absolute or materialize a physical body on earth at will. This is the true destiny for the human soul, to have its full freedom and to be or not to be. So that really stood out to me when I said that, or when I read that, I thought, yes, please. So I thought, could you speak to that and maybe talk about the immortal body?
Yes. Well, the immortal body is just, the body is to be in this universe, whether it's in the physical, what we call the physical part of this universe, or the astral part of the universe, whatever we want to call it, it's still part of this universe, which is the manifested form. And it's based on dichotomies. Everything here is positive, negative, opposites, because it's split. It comes from a place of being divided, whereas spirit is whole, undivided, limitless, eternal. And in a sense, there's nothing to it. It just is. There's no division, so there's no time, there's no sequence, there's no linear experience like we all have here. And in the process of developing ourselves toward a full enlightenment or full awakening, that just means, oh, hey, we're in this universe, but we're not of it. This isn't our home. And so we come here, we're here to learn how to get back to who we really are. And so the purpose of life is essentially learning, but what we're learning here is to learn to truly be who we already are. Well, that seems like the easiest thing. But if it's so easy, why does it take us so long, so many lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes of being here to go through and learn all that? Well, the learning process is what brings about this immortal body, this body that's not this physical body that's born out of a mother, but it's a body that we can manifest as spirit, manifest into this world at will. And you hear about that from, those people like Jesus was able to just show up after he was, so-called dead. And there have been other enlightened masters who, after they're considered dead and gone from here, well, they'll, if really needed, they'll show up in the physical, in the flesh, where you can, a person here, we would be able to touch their body and everything. And it seems just like ours, except it's not. It wasn't born from a mother. It was manifested. And that's when you know all that is needed to be known in terms of who you are as spirit, from which everything arises. So then anything in this world, in this universe, it works just like when we're dreaming at night. And I know you guys are really interested in the lucid dreaming. And what's that mean? Well, that means we all dream, and some of us remember dreams more than others, but we all dream. When we remember our dreams, while we were dreaming, it was total reality. We're living our life, and we assume this is the way I am, and I'm driving the car, or eating dinner, or whatever it is. But how do we get lucid? Well, sometimes in the middle of the dream, we go, wait a minute. What was I doing before I was driving the car? Wait a minute. I assume this is a friend I'm having dinner with, but I don't think I ever met this person before. No. Who is this person? How did I get here? And when you start asking questions, basically you're asking, what's wrong with this picture? Something's missing. And when you start asking, you'll eventually get to a place of going, oh, wait a minute. This is a dream. I'm in a dream. This is my dream. I'm dreaming. Mm-hmm. And it's such I'm sure it's such a joyful, freeing experience, because you realize, wow, this is just a dream. It's not real. It's just a dream, which means I can do anything I want. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to, the monster could have been chasing us and we were having a nightmare, but if we become lucid, we wake up within the dream and realize this is a dream. It doesn't control me. I'm not of this dream. I'm not part of this dream. I'm the dreamer. And so then now I'm still dreaming because things are still going on. But I just go, okay, I think I'll walk through the wall, I'll fly, whatever. I'll make the monster disappear. And anything I like, boom, the dream changes to accommodate that, because I'm no longer believing that I'm part of the dream. I'm the dreamer. So it's coming, the dream is totally coming from within me. When we wake up, we say we wake up in the morning in the bed and go, oh, that was a dream. That's a different kind of waking up. We're waking up from the dream we were having during our sleep, but we're waking up in a different dimension of a bigger dream. And when we look back at the dream we were having at night, and let's say it was a nightmare, and we wake up in the morning and go, oh, thank God, that was just a dream. What happens? Oh, it was just a dream. I was scared out of my mind during the dream, but once I wake up and I know it's a dream, it's nothing. In fact, I know it even didn't really happen. It only happened in my mind as a dream. And now that I'm awake, it's gone. And really, I can't get back to it because it's never there. It's all made up. Well, what we're doing here in this physical, so-called physical world of time and space, we take it one more step, one more dimension down, and it seems even more real than what's in our mind. But the same thing is happening right here. We're looking around, we assume, we're born somewhere along the way, we start to realize, oh yeah, this is me, and I'm a kid, I'm growing up, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I've always been like this. I've always had a Japanese body. I've always had black hair, things like that. But when you start to wake up, it's like, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? What was I doing before birth? Oh, I have memories. Okay. And then people get scared of dying. So they go, what happens after you drop dead? Is there life after death? And more people are waking up, even to the level of just considering that, yeah, it's possible that there's more to life than just this. This is part of the waking up process. As we do so, the more aware we become, our form changes. The physical form may not look much different, but the inner, more subtle aspects of what we have as this physical body, the inner energy body, starts to accommodate the changes in our consciousness. So it becomes lighter. One way to describe it is it becomes lighter, it becomes brighter, and it becomes less and less the effect of our physical environment. So, yes, on the physical level, if a Mack truck comes and runs the body over, well, you're roadkill, just like anybody else, until you're fully done. But in the subtle bodies, there's less and less effect. So the person's experience inside, even if the body's injured and stuff, it's an entirely different experience. Example, a few times I was in deep prayer, and so even though I'm operating a physical body and everything, I've had injuries and things that would normally have bleeding and everything, and it would normally hurt. No pain whatsoever. And it's a little bit similar to if you've ever heard of psychic surgery. People open you up with no anesthesia and put their fingers in there and pull things out. All that looks gruesome from a physical perspective, but it's not physical at all. It's not the healers usually. I've never met a healer who himself as the spiritual being was able to do it. They have a lot of help from spirit, and they have master beings, healers that are on the other side that come through them that know how to change the dream. And that's part of the immortal body is, once you start to understand, once you start to know who you are as spirit, then you're like in that lucid dream. I'm the dreamer, so I don't like this dream anymore. I like to change the dream in a where it's more fun or whatever. And the minute you do that, the dream starts to change. Well, the body is part of this dream. It's part of this world. And so on all the dimensions. And the immortal body is one where the dreamer recognizes it and says, okay, I'm going to change this part of the dream. If you don't recognize that this is a whole dream and that you're the dreamer, you can't do that. I mean, you have to do it from the outside and, stitch up the cut and this and that instead of healing it from the inside.
Yeah.
Most of us do.
Yeah. And for most of us, we're on the path of learning. So we're at different levels of learning, and until you're finished, you still might need stitches. You still might, you'll probably most likely get killed if your body will, if you get run over by a bus. So it's some people think, as soon as you understand this. Oh yeah, I'm going to jump off of a tall building and splat. Okay, better luck next lifetime.
Well, we've
Yeah.
known a few people who have had experiences where they were, run into by someone and nothing happened. We knew a person who, she was, I think, a pretty advanced soul. And she was driving her car one time, and somebody drove their car literally right through her car. And she said it was the strangest thing because everything kind of turned brown and the car went through her.
Oh, wow.
And it was over with, and nobody stopped, nobody did anything. She just went on, and the other person went on, and it was like it never happened. But she was aware enough to notice it, because sometimes when things like that happen, people aren't aware. And the same person had another experience where a giant Mack truck fell off of a cliff on top of her car, which was in a parking lot. And she was in it. She was just about to pull out.
Oh, wow.
And she was a little tiny lady, and she saw it coming, and she squinched down in her car like this, and the car literally was squished down to just a foot or so. And yet some man with a strange little hat came along and opened the door, grabbed her glasses, and helped her out of the car. And it was such a phenomena that happened that when the firefighters came to the scene, one of them became frightened of her because he kept saying, well, where's the driver of the car? Because they must have gotten killed. And she said, no, I was the person in the car when that truck fell down. And he said, you're the work of the devil, you know.
Yeah, that was the fire chief.
That was her. But, you know, a lot of times the way people respond to us, it has to do with what we're working on inside of ourselves. So, you know, people are kind of acting out the things that we need to learn about and everything. But I also wanted to add to Michael's story about awareness is we've been doing this a really long time. And one of the things is a persistent practice will take you into layers and layers of more awareness. That's been my experience. One day I was driving, Michael and I were driving to LA from Northern California, and he was kind of dozing off next to me. And all of a sudden I had this complete awareness of everything. It lasted about a minute, but it was one of the most magnificent experiences of my life. I was the sky, I was the car I was driving, of course, the body, the scenery, the freeway ramp that I was just about to go under. It was a really interesting experience. And my understanding of this growing awareness of the dream is that we do it in phases because otherwise it would be too shocking. So it's not anything anybody has to be in a giant hurry about, but it's for people who are pursuing greater awareness. You know, all the tools and things that they practice is getting them there.
That's really cool.
Yeah, actually, Michael and Raphaelle, I've been having, while I'm listening, right, and I'm having these questions, and I don't know if this is happened to you guys, I'm sure, but you're already answering my questions as I'm thinking of them. So I have to like check the questions off. Like I can't ask that question anymore. So instead, I'm just gonna sort of make a comment, and I think you're perfectly fine without questions. But I really appreciate what both of you are saying, especially about Michael, when you were saying about the dream part of it. One of the things I'm getting more into is dream yoga. And not only have I had my experiences with lucid dreaming and astral projection, just like both of you, I have had a lot of experiences throughout my life with things that have happened during the day that are completely unexplainable. And for people who have not had those experiences, it can be something that we ignore, as if, you know, we're in a dream and we're ignoring the little signs that are pointing to like, hey, this might be a dream. But we all have those big questions. Who am I? Why, you know, where are we going? How did I get here? That's a big one. How did I get here? If we don't specifically know how we got here, how do you know you're not dreaming right now? And when you start to maybe not specifically answer these questions, but give up, you know, control. And I would love both of you to speak on this. Like over the years, you've had so much experience. how did you ever have moments of struggling for control and have that moment of like, well, I just can't answer these questions. I just have to give up control and allow these experiences to happen. Did you ever have like one definitive moment, or has it been cumulative?
I think Michael did with his heart attacks for sure.
Okay.
Well, it's not one definitive moment. It's almost
Many.
all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
when you really start to look at that, you know, we're talking about giving up control.
Right.
It's so entrenched in our mind, in our consciousness, to control. So we all start off living quite a very conditional life. We have conditions. Okay, if you pay me this much, then I'll do that. But if you don't, I won't. If you're like this, I love you. But if you're not, I'm not going to love you anymore. You know, it's all kinds of, every day there's thousands of conditions we're living by, assuming, just like in a dream, we're assuming that's all real, and that's the way it is. Of course, who would want to, you know, love a person like you, or who would want to have a job like that? And the people experiencing that feel like that's reality. That's the way it is, until we start to, like you said, ask the questions and wait a minute. No, this isn't real. I just made it up. Over the course of time, I've started to seize control in my mind of, this is the way it has to be. If it's not this way, I'm not going to survive. If it's not like this, this person's not going to approve of me, whatever it is. So control. It's so huge. So layer by layer, we go through life experience, and my experience has been, it's like layer by layer. When you, way back when in my early 20s, I was starting to really be aware of, oh yeah, no, I got to let that go. And this isn't the situation I want to be in, but here I am. And of course, I had a teacher who put me in every situation I didn't want to be in. So I had to learn very early. And so that was the beginning of it. And, you know, especially when you're young and got a lot of energy and everything, you go, okay, I got this. Hey, I let go of all my control. And until you come across something else that shows you, here, see, you're still holding on to this. And whatever that is holding on to, underneath it all, it's always boils down to survival. You know, somewhere in our mind, we have a set of images, set of pictures, and part of the dream that defines, if you don't do this, you're not going to survive. If you don't have that, you can't make it. You know, on and on and on and on. If you're like this, nobody's going to love you. All that stuff. We got piles and piles of junk mail like that in our mind, and we've shoved it all down, so we're not aware that's operating. But it's just like being in a dark theater, the traditional old-fashioned theater with a projector in the back of the room, and everybody's glued to the screen because, oh, this movie is so engaging. Everyone's in the movie. We're living it, and we're getting scared when the characters, you know, we know that guy's going to come and get that person or whatever, or this person's really lying and manipulating, and oh no, don't do that. So we're so much into the movie, we totally forget most of the time of the movie that there's a projector back there, and in the projector is this little flimsy film strip with all these different pictures, images after images after images, that's running at a certain speed, and the light's going through those images. And when it goes to the lens to expand it, and it gets projected on the white silver screen, it looks like the real thing. Well, that's what's happening in our mind. We're the light. And like Jesus said, we're the light of the world. Guess what? We're the light of the projector. we're the light bulb in the projector, and our light is going through the images in our mind that we're not aware of. Most of us are not aware of. And those images are going through the motion. And as our light projects through that moving image, we have this experience, we have this dream. And the dream is so real. We're living in it. We think we're part of the dream. We don't realize that we're the producer of the dream. Until we do, we don't look at, wait a minute, where are these images that's projected on this world screen coming from? Where's the images and the action of this dream I seem to be stuck in coming from? And of course, we have to look inside of our own being toward the light that's projecting through the film to produce the dream. So we'll get to the place of starting to, as a clairvoyant, a person who's clairvoyant just starts to see more of the subtle mechanisms that bring about this dream world. And you start to realize, oh, it's like a film editor who's an expert at editing film. They know where to scroll to, frame 10,863, boom, let's edit that out. Let's delete that frame. And if you just delete one frame, nobody's going to notice unless you're totally, glued to the screen looking for it. You're not going to notice there's a little blip. Nobody notices that. And you could even take out several and nobody notices it. If you take out images in the whole movie at the strategic places, nobody's going to notice anything. But if you take out a clip long enough, sometimes it could be as short as 4 or 5 frames from the beginning of a scene, and the scene is a fast scene where it changes the scenery real quickly. Oh, you missed a whole part of the movie. It's like something's wrong. I don't get it. I didn't follow. The segue is missing. and you're kind of struggling to figure out what this story, where's it going, whole bit. And that's what starts to happen when we start waking up, is we start to recognize, oh, I've been stuck on this picture, this image from my childhood where I was traumatized and I was scared and, terrified. And the only way I could survive at that moment was to hide under the, covers or hide in the closet and wait for everything to go away. And then I can come out. Okay. One of us survived that way. The other's in a similar situation, but they survived not from physically hiding, but just totally going out of the body. And this is why a lot of abuse, people who are abused in their childhood, and they couldn't physically run away. They ran away psychically, spiritually. They went away somewhere else. The body's still there, but the being, the consciousness is somewhere else.
That's why they can't remember.
That's why they can't remember what really happened until they go through therapy or something opens that up and whoa, there it is. So PTSD, that's a great example. Anytime, it doesn't have to be, you have to be a war or you have to be at ground zero in 9/11 or whatever. No, PTSD could come in any kind of a situation as long as you had the traumatic experience of that you held on to. But if you had what would be a traumatic experience for somebody else, but hey, you just let it go right through, like, oh yeah, that was fun. No big deal. Then it's like, oh, there's no PTSD. There's nothing stuck in your mind. That stuck means your energy and your consciousness is still somewhat in that frame. It's like watching a movie where there's this horrific scene and you miss the next 5 minutes of the movie because you're so stuck on that horrific scene.
And somebody
says, and somebody says, oh yeah, you know, but boy, right after it, when the superhero came and rescued, what superhero? I missed it. I was stuck on that horrific scene. That's PTSD. It keeps on playing the loop. Yeah. And so to change that, once you recognize, oh yeah, that's just an image in my mind. I wasn't aware of it before, but now I am. And that's just an image. Let's take the image out of the film and just delete it. No more horrific scene. And no more experience of the pain, the humiliation, whatever it is. It's like waking up from becoming lucid in the dream. We're still in the dream because we're still watching the movie, rest of the movie, but we become lucid and we're going, yay, I deleted that scene. I don't feel it anymore. I don't experience it in any way. I'm free, totally free of it. That's why we have more energy and more awareness. Whereas if somebody goes into denial and says, I can't handle that scene, so I'm going to deny it. I'm going to pretend it's not there. They cover it over. Then they lose energy. They lose awareness. They become less aware.
Takes energy to do that.
Yeah, takes energy to do that. But if you see it and see it for the truth that it's nothing, it's just an image. Oh, yeah, it's gone. It doesn't hurt me. It doesn't do anything to me, except that I thought it did. And now it's gone. So I'm free. I get all my energy back from that was contained in that image. And that image could be a grudge, you know, a vengeful grudge. You did it to me, you know, blame. So another way to talk about how do you get rid of these images, it's called forgiveness. You know, when you forgive, the real level of forgiveness is when you basically wake up from the image. You wake up from that particular experience seeing. You don't wake up from the whole movie yet, but you've woken up, you become lucid in that vignette, and it doesn't exist anymore.
And the other thing, the patterns that go with it don't exist anymore, and your future experiences, if you kept it, don't exist anymore. It's like deleting a bad program out of your computer, you know.
Yeah, the whole program goes out. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like that, you know, when you have an experience, it's like opening a window on your computer. Do you want to enter it or not? Remember the days of the pop-ups? You know, here's a pop-up. You can go in or not. Of course, nowadays, most of the pop-ups are scams, but you know, there was a time when it wasn't that way at the beginning. So you can choose to go into that and really go in and in and in and in and continue on that track. Or you can go, no, I don't want to go in there. And I thought of an example when Michael was talking about this, about a public forgiveness that someone did once that really impressed me because of how he did it. You probably remember when O.J. Simpson was on trial for the murder of Nicole, his former wife, and her friend Ron Goldman. And in the course of that whole thing, Ron Goldman's father had a, what do you call it, you know, gathering of the media. Mm-hmm. And he announced to everybody, I have decided that whoever killed my son, I have to forgive him or her. And he said that is because the way he was looking at it was, he says, I can't live the rest of my life feeling this way. So that's not full awareness of what that forgiveness was going to do for him, but it was enough awareness to see that if he stayed on the track of being so devastated by that murder of his son, that his life wasn't going to be worth anything to him after that. So I thought that was an amazing, amazing example, public example of, you know, why someone would decide to forgive the murderer of his own child. And the thing is, when you start to look at what Michael's talking about here, every experience we have eventually has to be forgiven, you know, every single one of them. And if we don't, we come back and have the opportunity again. That's how it works here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I know both of you have had near-death experiences, and I thought it'd be interesting. Maybe you could talk a little bit about what is it? Are there any differences between maybe someone that just has an out-of-body experience versus like a near-death experience? If there's any differences with that, or
Yeah, it's near-death experience is NDE, out-of-body experience is OBE. So let's see. Let me see if I can get this right. All NDEs are OBEs, but not all OBEs are NDEs.
That's right.
Got it.
Yeah. So basically, you don't have to get rid of your physical body in order to have an out-of-body experience. But when you do, you could only have an out-of-body experience. And it's interesting because when people think about out-of-body experience, this is the problem with not language, but in this world, since it's divided, it's always positive, negative. It's got two of everything. And the reason for that is time. Our experience, there's no such thing as time, but our experience of time is a linear, step-by-step unfolding of our experience. So in spirit, since there is no time or space, everything is instant. In spirit, when you're really in spirit, as just spirit, it's just is. There is no activity. There is no thought. There is no action, nothing. But when the creative part of ourselves is spirit. So when we make a decision, we might think we're making an intellectual decision. I really researched this and I thought it over, and this is the decision I'm going to make. Okay, that's what we might be aware of. But when we make that decision, we're making that decision in spirit, because that's the only place that creates. And in spirit, once you make a decision, the entirety of that is done. It doesn't take time. It doesn't go through a process. But what we experience here as human beings as the process is the unfolding of what already happened in spirit in an instant in this world of time, conditions, and time and space. The instant everything has to go through an order. It has to go through a sequence. This goes and this happens and this happens. So it's literally like a unfolding. And this is the same way dreams unfold from within ourselves when we're dreaming. We don't have, when we're dreaming, one of the things that's missing is this real experience of time. We're just there and experiencing. We don't have that, before and after. It's just we're experiencing whatever happens. Here, we always look at, right before now I was doing this, and right afterwards I plan to do that. And so we think in terms of linear time sequence. And so it seems like things are not unfolding, but things happened. This happened, and then this caused this other thing to happen. And that's what scientists basically at this point are really trying to define everything in those terms, cause and effect. But this world has no real cause. Cause is always within us in spirit. The world is just effects on effects. Effect. Everything's an effect here, right? So then it's okay to look at it as relative cause. If I throw a ball against that wall, it's going to bounce back. Cause and effect type of a thing. And that's how you get technology. But we can't live our lives according to technology rules, because our lives are spiritual in nature. And how we experience things is as spirit, as well as how do we create and produce things is as spirit. So everything, once we make a decision, everything's done. if we, back to what Damon, you were saying, if we let go of the trying to micromanage and trying to make this happen next and this happen, no, this has to come next and that, if we let that all go, then what we'll experience is the natural unfolding and the unveiling from the allness of spirit. Everything's already done on spirit. And in this world, we experience it as an unfolding. This happens, and this happens. And we can even be aware that, pretty much everything that's happening to me right now is the unfolding of this decision I made. I decided I wanted this and I got to have this. So all of a sudden that sets the course of my life for a while of things unfolding. But most of us, we're not aware of that. So we end up contradicting ourselves. We make the decision, we don't let it unfold. Everything's all done in spirit, but we don't believe it. We don't trust ourselves. We don't have that certainty, and this is how it works. And so we step into our own way and start to try to micromanage. And in doing so, we dam up the works, and it doesn't unfold into this world the way we would like it to. But we can't expect how it unfolds because it doesn't unfold according to human reasoning. It unfolds according to the way dreaming works. And so, yeah, like you, Damon, you're studying dream yoga. I'm not that great of a dreamer. and it could be that I'm not interested, except for once in a while, certain things. It's like being interested in certain shows. I love stories. So in that sense, yes, that produces dreams if you really would like a good story. But if I'm getting out of my body to accomplish something, to do something that I need to do, it's, every night I teach and when I get out, and so, or heal. And in that sense, you don't need a dream. It depends on at what level that you like to do this, and let the rest of it unfold. It comes down the different dimensions, and it adds. It's like a assembly line in a factory. Somebody at the before the assembly line starts, somebody comes up with the idea and makes a mock-up of it, and okay, this is the piece of chair. This is the chair we're going to assemble, right? And then the suppliers and everything happens, and then the people on the assembly line or the robots put it together until you have the finished product. As long as if the CEO of the company comes into the middle of the assembly line and says, "Oh, I don't want you to screw it in that way. I want it to screw in this other order." He stops the whole assembly. It could be done. Since he's the CEO, he can do whatever he wants to do, but he's going to halt the whole production line until they re-engineer everything and reconfigure, reprogram, and then, okay. But if you do that all the time, you never get the final product.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a little bit like that. And in terms of the out-of-body experience, whether you get rid of the body or keep the body and have the out-of-body experience, it's not that linear thing of, okay, this body's a container and I'm now in it, and then now I'm out of it. It's more where you direct your awareness. So most people don't realize that right now, all of us are having an out-of-body experience at the same time we're having an in-the-body experience, right? Because everyone here is aware, at least to a pretty good degree, that, oh yeah, I'm aware of what's going on out there. That has nothing to do with my body. I'm aware of what's going on some other levels of the mind that has nothing to do with this body experience that I'm having right now. It doesn't include any of the sounds, doesn't feelings, sensations, none of that stuff going on here in this body environment is going on in that part of the mind, different dimension. but I'm aware of it. Now, since more of my focus and awareness and attention's here in this body experience of talking to you guys and everything, if you ask me, okay, well, tell us what's going on this level, it'll take me a little bit because I have to put more of my attention and awareness in that experience to be able to say much about it. Yeah. So at any given time, pretty much everybody's aware of lots going on that has nothing to do with what's happening right here in this body experience. And now a good example, Damon, I know that you practice this a lot, and especially in the more going out of the body in this realm. So it's exactly like, you know, if you get out of the body right here, right now, then you look around, and if you look at your clock in your room, and when you come back into the body experience of the physical, you'll be able to say, oh yeah, I was out of my body. I'm looking at your bald spot above your, on your top of your head. And it was, 1:45 when that happened. And I could vouch for that. It says, oh yeah, exactly at 1:45. I felt a little attention on the bald spot or whatever. And how I know that is because when I first sat down and saw the Zoom screen, and when I looked at and you said hello and looked at your screen, you in your more subtle body, it's kind of a combination of the one body in from the physical. Some people call it etheric or whatever, but it's exactly like this physical body, except and experiences everything like this physical body almost. It's a little bit lighter version, but it can walk through walls, but it can't go to the future or the past. In that body, you're in this so-called objective reality at the right time. You can't. That's why the clock is, you're going to know the same time. And even if you don't totally experience the passage of time on an experiential level like we do here in the physical, but you still are bound by time, but not by space. You can go away somewhere and then come back. So how I can tell is that part of your consciousness was just above your head. A good portion of that particular body of yours was out of the body, out of the physical body. Now you're much more here in that body, but at that time you were more out, right up here, and I don't see that often. It's only people who are actually learning and practicing to do that part of out of body projection or out of body experience, and so that's the out of body experience you read about a lot in when people all of a sudden become aware that they were in the middle of surgery under anesthesia, and all of a sudden they're floating at the ceiling, looking down and going, oh, gee, they're operating. Well, the difference between the level of awareness of that soul is some of them would say, oh no, they're cutting me open. Whereas a more aware soul would say, oh, they're cutting my body open.
I'm out of here.
Yeah, and so that's
this.
yeah, even more aware and wouldn't even be interested. Oh, that's forget it. If I'm out, I'm gonna go do something more interesting than hang around what they're doing to my body, and but that level of out of body experience will allow you to go down the street or listen to somebody's conversation down the hall in so-called real time. And for a lot of people who are not even interested in that, and when they hear the stories of that, they're able to go, whoa, this might be real. This might, some people actually experience this. So there must be something beyond this body. And that gives them a lot of, it's like, hey, you got to expand your mind and possibilities. But if you're at that level, being able to experience that more, then you go, okay. After a while, you go, okay, what else is there? Then you have what might be called more the astral experience of being out of body. It has, depending on what level of the astral consciousness, astral world you go to, the lower levels have a lot of things that are very much like this world, you know, grass and trees, but it's just more beautiful, it's more vibrant, it's more alive. That's one of the things you experience when you're at that level of the astral. It's just like everything is alive. It's like what Walt Whitman experienced. The leaves, every blade of grass is alive and talking to you and everything. And he got to experience that. That's actually an out of body experience here in the physical. His vibration went high enough to experience, like what Raphaelle was describing of her experience of the allness and the whole universe, and being part of the breadth of the world is all there. And so we experience it the same thing, same place, same thing, in a very different way, depending on our awareness and energy level and whatnot. So out-of-body experience just means the experience and the awareness of life in relationship to yourself that's experiencing it, that doesn't have much to do with the physical world and the physical life, physical body. So it's not necessarily having to go away or out somewhere else. It's not and coming back in the body is definitely not a containment idea. A lot of people I notice who starts to learn that they're too spaced out, they have to be more present, and they learn, I got to get back in my body more, which is, as a way of saying it, is fine. But somewhere along the way, they have to get out of the image that I have to contain myself into this container. Then they have the problem we all have. What's the first, quote, problem for the soul, the spiritual being, right from birth? Oh, the body is a mortal thing. It's being born right now, but it's going to eventually die. It lives only in time and space. Spirit, on the other hand, is immortal, infinite, and limitless and timeless. Okay, right there. Okay, how do we handle both of those things? And that's a big part of the challenge. You have to recognize, oh, I am limitless. I don't live in time, but I can experience it through this body that doesn't experience naturally limitlessness or timelessness. It's just where it is and doing what it is. So we start to have more and more space within this bodily human world experience to relate to this experience and start to recognize, oh, we're visitors here. We're students here. We're visitors here. We're here temporarily to learn stuff. And what is it that I need to learn? Oh, yeah. It's all about relationships. I have to learn how to relate to this world so I'm not a prisoner. I'm not a hostage. I have to learn to relate to this world and all the laws of this universe and conditions and all that. So I don't have to live as the effect of it. I can live as the contributor to it. Yeah.
The creator in it.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we bump along on our merry way until we learn it.
And then the other thing is, when we die, we are just stepping into a different part of the dream. until we're enlightened enough not to have to be here. So that's, you know, that's one of the things that near-death experiencers get to see is once they're out of the body and they know they're dead, quote unquote dead, they realize they completely still exist. They are still in communication with people and other beings and all kinds of things. There's beautiful things out there. And you know, ultimately, most people who go through near-death experiences do not get to the point, they don't get to go past a certain point. Because if they do, then it's that whole awareness of when they're going, whether they're going to cycle back into a body or, you know, move on to their next step just as a spiritual being. And I always see it as our movement back towards God, however you want to look at God. But, you know, even just the most atheistic person could, atheism meaning they don't particularly believe in God. You don't have to particularly believe in God to have that same kind of possibility of enlightenment. It's just the process for it is just a little different for a person who isn't looking at God, which I think is great because a lot of times atheistic people are the best ones for, you know, if they do have some kind of amazing near-death experience or out-of-body experience, they're the ones that are going to go, I thought this wasn't real, much more convincingly.
Right.
Yep.
So, yeah. I had my first real lucid dreaming experience when I was a teenager and I had a crush on a guy. And I found myself in my nightgown floating over him. And when I woke up from the dream, I remembered that he said something to me like, oh, you look so beautiful. And this was a person I wasn't supposed to be attracted to because he was a little bit older than me. I think I was 16 and he was like 22. But I did run into him within a few weeks of having that. And I started to describe to him, I had this dream about you. I didn't know it was astral travel. I had this dream about you and I floated over you. And he said, in your nightgown. And this is what it looked like. It had this little bodice, it had 4 buttons here. And I told you how beautiful you looked.
Oh, wow.
So that was my little whap awake. It's like, oh, yes, we are spirits even away from our bodies. So, you know, and I wasn't an atheist at the time, but certainly a lot of people who, you know, don't believe in spirit or really don't believe much of anything can still have these kind of experiences and start to recognize, you know, we're learning something here, even if you can't put words or definition to it. And it has to do with our inner growth.
What I found was, what I thought was amazing, I listened to both of your stories about the near-death experiences and how, I think, Michael, you mentioned one of yours about, I think you proposed a question to maybe a different being, and then they said maybe it would be more helpful to be on this side to kind of work.
Yes.
And then also, Raphaelle, you mentioned that there was like almost no thought, like you could easily just went through the arch or whatever it was you're noticing. And I can't remember what happened after that, it just slammed you right back in. That just was amazing to me, of like how easily it could just be like, okay, I'll just carry on and then coming back. So that was kind of interesting, those points in time.
Yes. Well, in my experience, mine was compared to Michael's, my near-death experience was really simple. I got really sick eating a sandwich from a health food store, and I'd been sick for 3 solid days. And we were in Hawaii, and Michael had just gone off to finally go into the water. I told him I thought I would be all right, and I had my near-death experience while he was out. And I found myself at the threshold where you actually do cross over. And my guide asked me, he told me that you've done everything that you came to do. And I don't know what year this was, maybe 1997 or something. It was quite a while ago. You have finished everything you came to do. You can come on over if you like. And my experience of a decision, whether he didn't say you can come or you can go, it was just implied. And I remember standing there, just being completely neutral. Because I wasn't in my body, I didn't have the feedback from the body. Oh, I have young stepkids that, might need my mothering. And I have this, we just bought a house and this and that and this and that. None of that. It was just quiet. So my response was no response. And the guide put a picture to me. Well, what about this teaching you and your husband were supposed to do together? Boom. I was back in my body and told, as I came back in, somebody whispered in my ear, you need to eat a banana. That sounds ridiculous, but I was completely dehydrated. I needed the potassium because I had been very ill in the lower digestive area during that 3 days. So I was so weak when I woke up from that. First off, I could tell I came in through the carotid artery, which was very strange because I never even knew where that was over here. And I knew my heart had stopped, and I knew I had been in the heavenly plane. So it was very, very clear. And as I came in, I heard that eat a banana, and I tried to get up and I fell on the floor. I was so weak, I couldn't even stand. I had to crawl into the next room where there was a kitchen table and a half of a banana on a plate in there. That was all the bananas we had, but I actually ate it. And when Michael returned, it was very cute because he had a wonderful, amazing experience with a large old turtle in the water. He came in all excited. Oh, I have this wonderful story to tell you. And I thought, wow, I have a pretty good story too. Go ahead, you tell your story.
Oh, by the way, I dropped it while you were gone.
Yeah, well, and that's what it was like. But here's the thing. The most amazing part of that experience really wasn't the experience itself, but what happened afterwards, which was we returned home after about a week and a half. And I went through something I recognized, but a lot of people don't recognize this when they're working on spiritual growth. Sometimes when a major experience happens, or even a subtle one that really jolts them in some way, we call what people go through a growth period, GROWTH. Sometimes we call it a gross period because the releasing can be kind of gross. But in my case, it wasn't so gross. When we got home, I just started to feel like I was bouncing off the walls, and I didn't know what was going on. But I did know I had an experience of I really didn't ever have to do anything if I didn't want to. I was not being driven by karma from that point on in my life. And unless I create it. Now that's another thing. If I do something to create karma, that's going to go into the works. But I felt like a brand new baby, clean, like I had nothing that I really had to do. And there was some kind of processing going on. I think it was more on the spirit level, which I wasn't really aware of. So I called a friend because Michael was busy. I called a friend and said, hey, friend, could you give me something we call an energy check? So she said, sure, let me look at you and I'll call you back in 20 minutes. And because I was literally, whatever I was doing, I just couldn't get my act together for that day. And she called me back and she said, you went to Hawaii recently, right? And I said, yeah. And she said, did you die there or something? And I went, oh, that. She said, you're in the growth period. You're processing the fact that you don't have any karma that you have to work anymore in this lifetime. And so basically from that point on in my life, the quality, it's subtle, but really loud to me because of being a clairvoyant, being very sensitive, the quality of my life really, really changed to a space of, when I get up in the morning, I have a million things to do, but I know in my heart of hearts and in my mind, I don't have to do any of them if I don't want to, but I do them because I do want to. And it's allowing me to do more work while I'm still healthy enough and well enough. We're in our late 60s and who knows how much longer we're going to be here, but it just really gave a lightness to my life I never had before, which, maybe this for anybody that's been through a near-death experience where they were told, well, you're done. But you decided to come back anyway. This is one of the aspects of that.
Interesting.
I have a question that could be somewhat vague, and it's relating to what you're saying and also to what you were saying, Michael. And but I want to see if we can get specific, especially for people who have not had as many experiences as both of you have had, where there's the idea of letting go and not always trying to control, but you
Yes.
still do have to participate.
Mhm.
Now, everybody still has those moments of like, what should I do? Should I be doing this or should I be doing that? I'm in this relationship. Do I want to stay with this person? I'm in this job or career, whatever it is. Can you speak specifically what people can do, what could help people to sort of bridge that divide, to sort of where that dividing line is between just letting go or maybe even, falling into apathy or nihilism, like, oh, nothing matters, and making specific choices. Confliction, that's the word I think of.
Yes.
I'm conflicted. I know I should be doing this, but I'm doing, like, what can you give
Yeah,
specific?
I totally understand what you're asking. And it's a really good question because, most people get into that space, especially in difficult situations and life change situations and everything.
Love life.
And what happens, the key was part of the key to the answer is what you just said, is that division, the conflict. And notice the conflict and division when a person's going through that is between this or that. Oh, do I just let go and let God, or do I grab the bull by the horns and wrestle it and take charge and do it? And the answer to that is neither and both. To start it up, what's important is for people to recognize, anytime they're stuck in the either or situation in their mind, it's of the ego.
Yep.
No question. The ego has to go to either or. That's why, in a sense, whenever you're dealing with your ego, it feels like an ultimatum. Either this or die. Either this or that. Spirit, on the other hand, because the ego is always divided. That's ego's survival, is staying divided.
Yep.
And from that comes the whole thing we were talking about earlier about controlling and all that. Spirit, on the other hand, is never divided. It's always whole, undivided. That's why people call it oneness. But unfortunately, on an intellectual level, when you call something oneness, there's always something other than oneness. So that's where it's really hilarious over the ages. I think it was some Zen master that or Taoist or somebody who started because teaching his students oneness, he can tell in their mind they had oneness here and something else over here. And so he started to go, it's not two. Are you not two? And he would remind them, and pretty soon all his students start to learn, oh yeah, he's reminding me it's not two, not divided. So then how do you make the wise decision is always the decision that's based in spirit, your inner being spirit, which always says both and plus. It doesn't exclude. It doesn't make it's got to be either this way or that way. So it's the spirit question is never, okay, are you going to let go of control or are you going to control it and make your choices and, make it happen? It's part of the reason I said neither was it's not quite that isn't the correct choice. If you step out of that either or and go, okay, look at it from an all-inclusive level. Oh, you always have to have control in things, but not try to control. There's a big difference between having control because you have certainty that it's fine. That's the sense of control. You don't have to try to go get control. So the control that a lot of spiritual people struggle with is to let go of trying to control, even let go of wanting to control. Amazing thing happens once you start to let go of the wanting to control. Control becomes a non-issue because you already know you have control. So once you have control, it's inner control. You have, and having control, how does it look like? Well, it could be on a physical level. Let's say a black belt martial artist might be able, has the sense that, oh, I have control in this situation. They're not afraid on a physical level that, oh, there's some, shady looking guys hanging out in the dark corner over there. They'll be aware and cautious, but they know they can handle themselves. So they don't have to try to control the situation. Say, okay, where's my weapon and this and that, and then and try to externally control anything. They already have that level of control. Whereas a person who doesn't have enough certainty in themselves might get so afraid that they jump to conclusions, they profile, they try to regulate the surrounding to make it safe for themselves. And in doing so, they might actually jeopardize themselves. So the control that we have, I don't know what else to call it, we know that control comes from choice. It's not from enforcing something, or, the idea of letting go of control is the kind where you enforce something. This is what I want, so I'm going to make it, I'm going to hold you down until you do it. That kind of control, whether it's on an intellectual level or a physical level, emotional, doesn't matter. It's still, you're trying to manipulate something. That kind of control, you got to let go, because that doesn't work. But having control comes from just the certainty in yourself as the being, as spirit, as everything comes from within you. Even if somebody considers that to be God or some higher power, it's from within, not out there up in the sky. So you're not divided from that. Then okay, what's going to happen is happen. And the less conditions we have in life, the more control we have inside, because I know whether this happens or that happens, I'm still happy, because my happiness isn't dependent upon this or that happening or not happening. But I'm not going to be stupid and just randomly just do something on a, thing that I know it's not going to end well, right? So whether, let's say, physical, even just on a physical safety or physical health or whatever, I'm not going to take undue risks just because I know if I die, that's fine. I'm not going to cry over that. And I know I will be totally fine either way. Of course, when things go really, fun, fantastic, wonderful way, hey, that's even better. But if it doesn't, I'm not unhappy. I can still be happy. So the less you're dependent on external circumstances, external conditions of the world and in life, the less you need to try to control, because you're not afraid of any of that. Now, the other side of it is when you have certainty in who you are as the spirit, all creativity is within spirit, from spirit. It doesn't come from the body. Proof of that, I have total proof of that, is if you go to a corpse, it can't do anything, right? So, what makes the body do things is you, the spirit, breathing life into it, animating it. Then the body could seem to be an incredible creative, person. But it's not the body that's the creative person. It's the spirit that's operating in and through that body that's the creative being. Now, once you realize, oh, you're the creative spirit, there's no time, which means you're not creative just during your waking hours. You're not creative just when you're with certain people. You're not creative just when you're doing your artistic work or something. No, you're creative 24/7. You're never, even when you sleep, you're never not creative. What does that mean? That means every moment of every day we're creating. And if we don't start to become aware of what we're creating by the choices we make, we end up in difficult situations, taking undue risks and damaging ourselves or reputation or this, that, or the other thing. So on the one hand, you could be free of any of that controlling your life, and you're free of not being dependent on those things. Like, let's say a politician or a TV personality might be very dependent on approval and voter approval and the audience accepting them and liking them and all that. But there's also been leaders and media performers and personalities that go, I don't care. I'm going to do this because I love doing this. But the funny thing is, when a person does it, not because they want to get everybody to like them or be popular or make a lot of money, but they do it because they love it. And they can't even think of doing something else because this is what I'm here to do. Generally, sure, everybody's going to always have their criticizers, but the larger part of the population are going to be all for them because, that's the experience they have. They experience this person undivided. They're not split in either or. So that's the advice I would give a person when they're in a difficult situation. First thing, recognize what is the either or that they've been struggling with. Step out of that. Let that go. And then look at it from a creative space of, you're the creator. You can create whatever. There's no, and to recognize that, all you have to do is your imagination. Look at your imagination. Our imagination is entirely free. Nobody can tell us what to imagine or not to imagine. We can agree. Somebody says, okay, would you imagine this? And okay, I'll imagine that. We can agree and imagine it, but they can't force us to. And they can't force us not to imagine. Somebody comes along, some dictator says, okay, you are going to have to worship me. And in the meantime, I could be keeping a straight face and going like this, but in my mind, I'm imagining the dictator with a pink tutu on and and I'm just having a great time. He can't, what's he going to do? Shoot me? Because he doesn't even know I'm imagining that, because outwardly I'm not, showing that. And so imagination is completely free. And even, especially little kids, before they have limitations on their imagination, they just imagine anything. Adults, on the other hand, have been trained to limit their imagination in so many different ways. No. Yeah. And that's not real. And that's just your imagination. Imagination gets invalidated one way or the other, but that's the beginning of all creativity. If you can't imagine it, you're not going to create it. So when we're looking at some big life decision, and step out of the either or question and imagine, I can imagine anything. In this situation, what is it that I truly would like to imagine? No holds barred. It's like a brainstorming session, creative brainstorming session with yourself, and go, if I had my druthers, what would I imagine for this? What would I imagine for myself? Or even in a fairly, limited situation in relationship to this particular job or in relationship to this particular person, in this situation, if I were the film director, what would I imagine as, I would like to be the next scene. the next part of this movie. Oh, it's nothing like what's happening right now, or it's nothing like what's been happening. That's why maybe I was unhappy because of what's been happening. Okay, stop myself. What's been happening, even right up to right now, is the past. By the time you are able to reflect on what just happened, it's the past. Don't stay stuck in the past. Yeah, the either or question will keep you prisoner in your past, because the either or question is based on what you've already experienced up to one moment ago. Now you're in a whole new world. What is it you're going to imagine? You have to be the writer that imagines the next chapter in the book, the film director that imagines the next scene in the movie, right? And I thought this movie was going to go that way, but I'm changing my mind. I like it to go this way more, because after shooting the last few scenes, the director that I am, learned, oh yeah, before we shot the scenes and before I got to experience these particular actors, I thought this was the best way the movie was going to go in that direction. But now I know different. Let's imagine it going in that direction. And what does that look like? And then you're in communication with yourself and the creative self, and you're giving your creative self the space to express your actual inner creativity, where there's no holds barred. Then once you do that and go, okay, what's my next step if I want to take it in that direction? And that, don't get stuck in the intellectualization and, oh, well, I need so much money. It's okay to look at all that stuff. But the first thing is you have to set course, which is all energy. And you want to set the course of energy so that when you start to look at the financial sheet or the bank balance or, world stuff, then, or the condition of your body or whatever it is, then you're already set course on the energy level. You're going to find answers. You're going to create ways in which, even with your physical restrictions, financial restrictions, legal restrictions, whatever, you're going to still be able to go in that direction. And so you might have to make different edits on the actual scene, and it might not be red curtains, but it ends up to be blue curtains. But is that going to make a big difference to your movie? Oh, not in this scene. Great, fine. So it's like that. So that's in a sense, it's a dance of letting go of what you wanted in favor of what works, and how it's unfolding. You got to be able to go, oh, I thought it was going to unfold this way, but hey, this way is going to work. As long as it gets to the destination,
you don't hold up the works.
You don't hold up the works.
Yeah. And, I consider that a form of working with your intuition. And I think that is very, very important. Why people need to, if they're really interested in taking their next step, to develop their intuition. Because my experience is, if I listen to all the little ego voices that, want to glorify everything or whatever, or put everything down, either way, it never works. But if I listen to the voice of my intuition, it never steers me wrong. And I've had, so many instances of that. And, sometimes we have to make decisions on the fly. For instance, when you're in traffic, and a traffic situation is happening, do you go left? Do you go right? Do you put on your brakes, to save your car and to save yourself? And, you have to be able to, over time, develop that intuition if you want to keep your car and you want to keep your body, to make the right decision, or to know that this might be it for your life. This is when it's over, and you can have a moment before you go out of the body, knowing that this is what's happening, and you're not all in a panic about it.
And with intuition, a lot of people ask that very same question of, okay, how do I know that this is the voice of my intuition or voice of spirit? And how do I know that this is the ego's voice steering me in the wrong direction? Very simple, very, very simple. Once again, the ego will always say either or. It's a closed case. In spirit, intuition comes from spirit. Spirit always is open, all inclusive. And so ego's voice is loud and usually obnoxious. It's either very demanding or very seductive,
Yes.
or very threatening. Yeah, ego's voices are always, it's never neutral. So that's another dead giveaway, is if the thoughts in your mind is going, gotta do this, it's, oh, that's very demanding. That's the ego. Or it's very threatening. If you don't do this, you're
gonna lose
toast.
your job.
and that's the ego. If it's very quiet, and it's very neutral. That's one of the real key telltales of spirit, is totally neutral. It doesn't tell you have to do it.
Yeah, it doesn't have an opinion about it.
Yeah, it doesn't have a judgment attached to it, right? So it's just like, here's your answer. Even in like Raphaelle's example of, you got to make a split-second decision. We were driving once. Raphaelle was driving, and I was in the passenger seat. And this is before GPS and all that. I actually have one of those fold-out maps. I'm burying my face in my lap, looking at the map of where we're going next. And this was in the winter in Lake Tahoe, icy roads and everything.
It was snowing a little bit.
It was snowing a little bit. But we're on this large boulevard going down multi-lane boulevard and passing all these big strip malls and everything. And so I'm not paying attention to where we're going on the street at all.
He's very trusting of my driving.
Yeah, and that's the way I am. If I don't trust you are going to, take me safely somewhere, I'm not going to get in your car. If I get in your car, I'm not going to try to control how somebody drives. That's the way I've been for a long time. And so I just go, oh, my life is in your hand. Enjoy.
Which I have many times.
Yeah. So then I'm buried in the map and go, oh, yeah. And I'm telling her, da, 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 da. And all of a sudden, it's like, look up. And so look up, and there's this long black stretched limo parked or stopped on the driveway to a strip mall. And I absolutely know with certainty, he is just going to try to go right in front of us and get to the other side. And so as soon as I see that, I tell Raphaelle, left, go left. And she didn't waste a second. She just, normally, if it was coming from a place of me going, oh yeah, why don't you go this way instead of that? She'll go, why should we go that way? Or, but the GPS says that way or whatever.
It wasn't GPS then.
I know, but something will, there'll be at least a moment of some kind of communication. But in this case, she just swerved and we start skidding. Yeah, put on the brakes, swerved, and started skidding. And we came parallel to, and came like, to a stop where I'm on the passenger side. I can, if the windows were open, I can kiss the chauffeur. the limo, we're so close. And you should have seen this. Oh, I wish, I had a video of that. It would have been gone viral. His eyes were so huge, frozen. And I'm just laughing because I knew it was fine. We came to a stop. There was about 3 inches between his car and our car, and perfectly horizontal, parallel.
Yeah,
But
we both got out of it.
that's the other part of listening to your intuition. It always, with spirit, if you're tuned into spirit, there's certainty. Doubt is always of the ego. And when there's doubt in a person's mind, they're already listening to the ego. And if they try to, what do they mostly do when there's doubt in their mind? They try to intellectually figure it out. Oh, I'm not sure. Let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. And for the next 10 years, they're figuring it out because that's the bait. The doubt is kind of the bait, but to get you sucked into it is if you start to intellectually try to figure it out, you're never going to get to certainty. It's you can kind of avoid the doubt and by, okay, I don't want to be in doubt, so I'm just going to go over here, but the doubt's still there in your mind. And you're not going to go there and you're not going to solve the problem or anything. So those are all different ways that you can tell, even if you don't do it on an intuitive level, you can tell that, oh yeah, I was listening to the ego, or, oh, that was total certainty. So when I got the look up, I didn't question where'd that come from or anything. It's just like, look up, saw what I needed to see, said what I needed to say, everything worked out.
Yeah. And people have these kind of things happen in their cars all the time. I was driving a car one time just finished driving over the pass from Santa Cruz to San Jose. And I noticed it was slightly raining. I was in the right lane. I noticed up ahead, some car was stopped in the middle of the freeway. I did not know the person in the car was a handicapped person and they were dead in the water. Okay. So I'm coming along. I see this guy up here and I'm driving and I'm driving a big Chevy long van, panel van, no windows on the side except for the passenger and driver's window. I'm driving this big truck, big-ish truck. And suddenly I hear a voice that says, grab onto the steering wheel as tight as you can and look in your rear view mirror. So I did. I mean, I didn't even question it. And I see this white flash. And next thing I know, I'm being hit as hard as you can imagine, one truck hitting another because I was hit by another truck. It was a big pickup truck with the big wheels. And the whole thing was this guy decided, since he was out of control, he didn't want to go over the guy that was dead in the water. And so his decision was go over the guy dead in the water or hit this person on the side. So he hit me. But I was holding on to that steering wheel so tight, I didn't end up rolling over, because panel vans can be, like SUVs, they can be a little top heavy sometimes. And it was empty. So I probably would have rolled right off the side of the road. And it saved me. It did. I ended up with a very smashed van, and the only damage was to my dog who was sitting behind the seat, because that's where I got hit. She ended up with a head injury, but I got saved. And, that was my intuition. And people have stuff like that when they're driving all the time. And if you listen, and it's usually, intuition is usually very, very quiet. But sometimes in an emergency like that, you'll get like a direct order. And why does that happen is because maybe it's not on your path to have a giant car accident where you're in the hospital and all that kind of stuff, or B, it's just not your time to die. This is not your time to die. So you get a pass on this one, but maybe on the next one you don't.
You get a warning ticket.
So it's really fun when you start to recognize that voice, but it takes practice. And if you make mistakes, it's not to shut down and not try again, but just it's a natural practice. And there's people that teach work. There's a lot of people out there now teaching intuition. And for us, we call it the part of intuition we teach about is clairvoyance, but really every chakra in our body has intuitive abilities. And we use them all the time. It's just starting to be able to master it more, because I think when you do, you are able to really be much more on the path you're supposed to be and not get into some of those pop-up windows that you're not supposed to get into in your life.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing too with intuition, I know a lot of people worry about, well, you know, I did trust my intuition once and it led me to the wrong place, or, you know, I put a big bet on the Patriots winning the Super Bowl, but they didn't even, you know, do it or whatever. And they cast off the intuition because it didn't work. Well, that's not, first of all, were they listen, what led them to making that decision may not have been their intuition, or if it really was the intuition, like I've experienced many times, where I'm wanting to get to a certain place and my intuition tells me to turn left. And so I turn left. It takes me on a detour. And so I get to the place maybe a little bit late. But then almost always I have the later on feedback. I turn on the news that later on that day and, oh, at 12:45 today, this happened and there was a shootout in this block of this street. I was there right at 12:45 or 44 or whatever. And when I made that left turn, avoided that shootout.
Yeah.
Or avoided when the 80 freeway in Northern California collapsed during that earthquake. I would have been right underneath that had I not listened to my intuition. And but until that happened, it was a little frustrating because my intuition tells me this and this, and everything that was supposed to, you know, I was supposed to be at this meeting, that meeting, and this meeting, they're all, quote, important, blah, blah, blah. Everything is falling apart because it could have been because I was following my intuition. Oh, but I could live another day to have a, you know, hey, do you want to die for a couple of meetings? No, meetings can get rescheduled. So it's like that.
And the other thing was, at the time, Michael was running a whole bunch of psychic institutes, and he got to where he was going a little early and avoiding those meetings. He decided to do energy work on each of the institutes, and most of them were in Northern California. There were some in Southern California too, but he did a whole thing of grounding them and keeping them really safe, and none of those buildings had
any damage.
Remarkable damage. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like that with energy work. I don't know why, but my attention is brought over here and I got to do it. So might as well.
Interesting. Yeah, there's one, this is not so much related to the intuition part, but just with the vehicles on the freeways. I remember my father and I one time on a freeway, and it was funny because he was talking to someone on the phone and he ended the conversation about something about safety. He hangs up, and then it was raining that day and we started hydroplaning. You could feel the truck lift up, and then we started spinning around so we could see, or turning around, we could see the traffic coming our way. And I'm just like, oh my God. And I thought we eventually made it to this right by the guardrail. I thought we were going to flip over, but we just stopped and the cars passed. We didn't get hit and we didn't get over, but I was just like, whoo.
Yeah. I think your father was listening to some level of his intuition and just unconsciously brought it forth. He saw it coming on some level. Probably what saved you, because he had that safety in his awareness at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go, Damon.
Well, I was just going to say, to, you know, listening to what you're saying and having all of my different random stories of almost dying as well, it sort of makes me think of just trusting in the fact, you know, with this idea of dream yoga that I sort of, you know, stick with and learning more about, trusting in the fact that just like a dream, just like having a lucid dream or even a projection, I'm sure you've experienced this a lot of times with your projections, that there is some sort of guidance, whether it be a spiritual guide or a higher power, whatever guide is there helping, will not let you go too far off of the path without sort of pulling you back in, saving you, or even just like, okay, game over, you know, like
Yeah.
you got to
Yep.
wake up now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that makes me think of. All those different times that I almost died, you know, being pulled back, or maybe the last time when I was being a little too reckless and getting that little voice in my head, like, you've had enough of being reckless. You can't be reckless anymore.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
We're
say,
constantly getting guidance.
In that
Andrew,
way.
did you have a last question or?
No, I didn't. No.
No? Okay. Actually, I think it'd be a great time to tell everybody how to get in touch with you if they wanted to, or you can give all of your information. I know you have your podcast that both of us are fans of. Both I love watching your podcast.
Yay.
You can tell about your books. Give all the information so everybody can let everybody know what you're doing and how to see you and contact you.
Okay. Well, we have a website. We will be updating it soon, but we keep it pretty current as far as the information is concerned. And it's an easy website to remember because it doesn't have my name in it. My name, Raphaelle, is like 9 letters. So it's michaeltamura.com. And if you want to find out about our events, which we are doing all on Maestro Conference, as well as Zoom, as well as, on the phone kind of things, that's would be in the events section of our website. So you just look at the top line and just look for the events. And we also sell a lot of our past events that we have done, because Michael and I have been at this for a very long time. Michael, 40 some years, as you heard, me, almost 40 years. And we have a lot of material, not a 40 years worth. We actually started the recording of our material and compiling it probably in the early 2000s. So that's one way. And then Michael's book is You Are the Answer, Discovering and Fulfilling Your Soul's Purpose. And it's not to be mixed up with Michael Beckwith's The Answer Is You. You Are the Answer by Michael Tamura, published originally in 2003 as a self-published book, and now published by Llewellyn as of 2007. And our phone number for if you wanted to get a reading, Michael doesn't do readings anymore, clairvoyant readings, but I do, is the phone number I'm giving you actually goes to our assistant, Noelle, who lives in Northern California. She doesn't live near us, but she takes care of all of our phone business, and she knows everything about what we're doing. And that phone number is 530-926-2650. And then when the pandemic is over, or when it's safe enough for everybody to gather again, because I'm not going to rent hotel rooms until we know we can fill them, we actually do in-person events. Michael does most of the teaching. When we were first doing this, we did everything together. We did the readings together. Well, Michael always did more of the teaching, but I co-taught with him. But as things went on and got busy, we had to divide our work. So I'm more working in the background, running and setting everything up and running it and all that kind of stuff. But I also teach occasionally with him. So that's the whole thing. michaeltamura.com. That's michaeltamura.com. That's where you can find us.
Cool. And we can link that stuff as well. And
Great.
yeah, I think, like I was saying in the beginning, you've answered so many questions that I was going to ask them and you're already answering thinking of. So
That's great.
So
Yes.
we were both so excited to have you on.
Thank you.
And everything we could have definitely hoped of to have in 2 great guests. So
Thank you so much.
I hope you two enjoyed being on the show.
Yes, absolutely. It was
We
delightful
loved it.
to be with both of you.
Yep.
And you got a good thing going. And
you do.
And both of you've been around this this dream for a long time.
Yeah.
So you got a lot going on. That's great, and you have a lot to offer
Yep.
people around the world. So
Really,
I'm
you're
glad
both-
you're doing this.
You're both really bright spirits, and I've completely enjoyed being with you.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean,
Very much appreciate it. Thank you.
yeah. Thank you for being you. So.
Yeah. So thank you everybody for listening and watching. And yeah, well, maybe we'll catch up some other time as well with Michael and Raphaelle Tamura.
That would be
And
great.
you can listen to Surf the Astral, watching Surf the Astral, and I hope everybody's having a great day.
All right. Take care.